Yeah, so yeah, to anybody that hasn't made it before, I think there may be a few people. Um, this group is interested in ggplot2 extension and by extension ggplot2 ports. I think we've heard from Hassan Kibarija on Plot9 before, and now maybe we're in a new era of um, more quickly put together ggplot2 ports. And so I was super interested in Mickaël's project, porting um, ggplot2 to Typst. His project, Gribouille, he'll pronounce it for us again, and we can practice. And then also ggSQL is a kind of new project on the scene. So hopefully we'll hear from Teun as well. I think he hasn't joined just yet. But I will turn it over now to Mickaël. Just a brief introduction. He's a consultant in biostatistics and is a freelance developer, specializing in Quarto and the R ecosystems. As a former academic, he's published in several high-impact journals and combines expertise in genetics and multi-omics analysis with open source development. And I'll just add this fun fact. He seems pretty interested in film. It's not a secret. It's very evident on his GitHub profile. So if you want to talk to him about something non-academic, non-ggplot2 extension, that might be a good topic. Yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to you. Yep, I got the request to share screens. Okay.
Okay, so thank you for the invitation. I'm going to talk about one of my projects, at least as an open source developer. So here it's the grammar of graphics ported to Typist. So you well know that there was already it in R called ggplot2. Then comes Plot9 for Python. We had last year, so the first pre-release for ggsql that was released last year. And I released basically now the same thing, like the grammar of graphics for Typist. So I'm going to talk briefly about how I did it and what it brings here. So a little bit of origin story, because everything started somewhere. And in that case, I had some issues basically when I was making reports. So usually you have some fonts in your report, like the brand from your company or from your client. And then it's starting to get really ugly with your plot that doesn't have the font, that is really hard to install and everything. So really several pain points about having consistency between your figure and your report. Usually you do that in twice, so you need a computing environment to make it work. So like R, Python, or anything. Then you compile the figure. You have to put it in your main document, so either Typist directly or through Quarto, and then render it again. So that's a lot of moving pieces. So that was the main reason I decided to just port here the grammar of graphics into Typist. So the idea was basically I developed an extension for Quarto. Sorry. Yep. I developed an extension called the Typist render for Quarto, which allowed me to actually put my diagrams from directly from Typist render and compile anything Typist inside my document. So either for PDF, Reveal.js, or anything like that. So the idea was, sorry, I don't know why it's switching back to, sorry. Okay. Um, so here I decided to basically do everything in one place because there was already some typos packages that was able to like draw diagrams, draw figures and everything, but nothing like as easy as the grammar of graphics. So since also a typist is able to read like data directly, you can read CSV file, JSON file. Basically, there was no reason like you can just bring your data into your document. The only thing missing was something easy to make figures out of it. So that's where like basically I decided like, okay, we have the same thing that just appeared for ggSQL. Why not just keep going the same work and do that for another language? And that's basically how it started. So the graphing API is basically the same thing as you might see like for any grammar of graphics, like plot line and everything. You get one line for the import, and then you get a function with data mapping where you put your aesthetics, like your Y, X, color, fill, and everything. The layers, basically any geom you want to add, and the same structure, labels, and so on. So you get like layers, you can draw points, like you can change the size of points, like anything you might be used to do in ggplot. You have the same thing like mapping, so you can just color your dots and like choose a custom palette. And as you can see here, my figure is basically completely in line with my slides. So that's just pure typist. There is nothing else here. So that show you like how easy it is to just make figure like with facets. And you can even do the same thing as with patchwork, which allows you to combine different plots. Here you have a function that is called compose that allow you to just put together different figures. So you get really the same features that you are used to with ggplot and some of the extension around ggplot2. Like a small bit here is because in Typers, there are no objects, there are no lazy evaluation. Actually, what you are building is not really a plot in the same sense as in R or Python. Basically, you build a dictionary with a specification for your plot. Then you have something that reads that specification to just draw what you are seeing. And because we are using in Typos, that means you get everything out of the box from Typos. So in Typos, since you can write anything like having boxes or anything, you can just annotate and use pure Typos to actually add a box here with the name of the penguin. So you can do like really advanced stuff without having to rely like on ggtext or other things like that and try to mix up markup. Everything is markup here. So you don't mix anything. You just use what is already there. So that's basically the API. Now, what is different and what is not from ggplot? So I try to be like as close as possible to ggplot because that makes the mind model like easy to grasp. If you are aware, if you were using ggplot or plot9, you know how like basically write into typest using the same API. So you get the aesthetics, the geom, the stats, the scale, facet, chord, and many other things like that. Where it's a little bit different is that you need to think about like the case. I'm using kebab case, no underscores. So I could have used the underscore, but I chose not to. So that's mostly a matter of taste. There are no plus operators, so you cannot like put your data, then add a geom and so on. So that's not completely true, but I won't complicate things right here. But the idea is basically you write a function and everything is inside it. I choose some things like the marker body for points, for instance. Fill is like for the within, and color is the outline, which is not the case in ggplot2, where basically color actually fills the dot, unless you change the shape. And I also like basically removed most of the abbreviation used in ggplot2 to have like the fully spelled word, like labels instead of labs. So these departure are basically so some were choices, but not all of them, because as I said, there are no lazy evaluation. So I needed to be able to use the main like the main structure in Typest, which is dictionary, and build around that. So like all the specification for each layers, so the data, the stats, the position, the scale, and everything, and basically switch from one step to the other until the final step, which is basically reading uh, all the specification for your plot and just draw it. So that's basically the main constraint that led to change from ggplot2 behavior. And so basically with that in mind, it means your figure is actually part of your document. It uses the same font, the same engine. You can use the same color palette. You don't have to define several things in several places. Everything is in the document. So that makes things like easier. You can just brand your document. Then your figure is also branded because your figure is completely part of your document. One thing that allowed this package to actually appear and be developed was basically AI. So at first, I didn't use AI, like not really. I spent a lot of time designing and seeing what was possible into Typst, what was not possible, how I needed to do things for make it like to make it work. So I found like there was a drawing layer that's called sets. It's basically the same thing as grid in R or Typst for LaTeX. So the same kind of like back end that allows me to basically draw anything. So I relied on that dependency. So that's the only dependency, but a quite big one. And then with time, I basically build around snapshots, test to ensure like the behavior was well constrained. So the first release was in like late in May. And then at each release, it was easier because I was able at this time to use LLM to follow my constraint, follow my snapshot, so to avoid like visual regression and everything. So we are currently in the like 0.4 release. So it's quite usable right now already. So what allowed me to basically do the whole thing with AI is first having like really spending time to make the design, how this package should work, what should not work the same way, etc. And obviously, like as I said, test, snapshot, and documentation, because I needed for the documentation to be like as exhaustive as possible and allow anyone to find the information they were looking for. So there is a big documentation website with all the function, with like several examples to allow anyone to figure out like if I want to do an histogram, how can I do this? So there is a gallery of like some dummy examples you can look at and figure out like exactly the code you need to do that. And finally, I was able to accelerate this. So like every fix now can be like sorted at least first with an LLM to speed up like basically fixing the few issues for edge cases that I did not identify first. So where it stands is basically now we are in the 0.4 like .4 release. So here it's a figure, and that figure is made with Typest. So that show you like what you can do. You can just do everything like from ggtext and other extension like that. So I can even draw like a star, like a shooting star with a gradient in it. I have my background that is a background gradient that is merging with the rest of the plot. So the panel is merging into the plot background. I can add colors. I can even have a little bit here for the version, like kind of badge design with a box. And everything is completely typed, nothing else. I didn't leave my document here to write that. So that's really like to showcase how it's that powerful here. The fonts are coming from the document. Everything is coming from the document. So what's the current state of Typest is basically you have a lot of already defined themes. You have scales, geomes. Most of it are there. What is not there is basically everything that is advanced statistics, such as computing like kernel density estimates. So you don't have the geome density or things like that because it's heavy computation and you cannot really do them in Typest. So that's one thing that is missing. So it's not like impossible to do. We can use the WASM plugins to actually do that work. What is also missing is everything related to maps. Because like here, it's really heavy polygons to actually draw. And so this is also possible with WASM, but for now, that is the main part that are missing, like advanced statistics and maps. And so to nearly conclude this short presentation, so I'm open to any feedbacks about the API because for now it's quite like experimental, let's say. So I'm open to suggestion. You can find my Tidy Tuesday like website, quarter website, which also showcase advanced figures using Typest. So you can see like you don't have much limits to what you can do. Um, and yeah, you can suggest eventually like some new examples for the gallery if you made something that is advanced or even like like a more trivial example, but that is showing some features that I didn't thought of showing. That are welcome. The only thing for now I'm not open to is pull request because basically this project is a spare time project. I'm not funded by anything, anyone. So it's having my PR open leads to basically having a lot of PRs made by Claude and people that are not necessarily reviewing their Claude PRs. So I don't want to have like an extra burden of reviewing AI since I can do the AI work myself, but like in more constrained environment. And so basically you can find typos on the typos universe. So there is always a little bit of delay between each releases on GitHub and the publication and typos universe. You have the documentation, GitHub, this talk. So I already shared also, but I think Jenna will share all the links later. And of course, the Tidy Tuesday, which showcase a lot of the package. And thank you.
Awesome. This was really a great tour of the project, and it seems like yeah, well, it made you made some really stunning figures. It's really exciting to see. A lot of round of applause from folks. So my thinking was that we could take one or two questions focused on Typst, and then we can turn it over to Teun to talk about the ggSQL experience. So if anybody has a burning question on the graphics for Typst, we'll take that now.
I have one. It's okay.
Yeah.
How big of a data set can it handle?
Well, I did not yet do like benchmark for the dataset itself. What I did recently, and it's not completely like online, but I basically wanted to know how many elements when you are publishing to SVG or PDFs, you can put into a figure in a reasonable amount of time. And so basically, like if you are like doing geom points, you can draw like 10,000 to 100,000 points in less than 2 minutes. Above that, it's starting to get like quite some time. So there is like a trade-off here. It's if you have a small figure and small, like it's already 10,000 elements, it's like 2 minutes to render. So don't go above that using like a Gribouille. Prefer like things like Python or R to compute your figure. Just generate the file and import that file. But even there, be aware that if you are using like vectorial file, you will increase like a lot the size of your final document. So there is also that, not just the ability to draw heavy figures, but also like to still have a small document. But for the dataset itself, yeah, I didn't try much, but I believe you will get the same kind of issue with heavy computation. It's not really designed to like Typus is not really designed to do like heavy computation. It's mostly to just write document and prose.
Great. Is there another? I think I see Cynthia's hand. raised. So, Cynthia?
Hi, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really cool work. So related to this, like how large of a data set can it sort of handle? Have you thought about like the workflow, like I don't know, some sort of pass off between like, making plots in R or in Python, like where you can handle the heavy computation, and then essentially passing off like a minimal data set to Types to do this final sort of like uh, formatting and theming. Is that something you've sort of
Yes.
thought about in terms of having like I don't know, a minimal data set?
Well, there are various workflows that so all are basically possible, but since I'm a huge user of Quarto, I basically have an extension that allows to compile Typest. And inside that extension, there are two helper scripts, one in Python and one in R, that basically allows you to do like you create your object in R and you can pass that object into Typest code. So you can do everything in R, Python at the beginning of your document. Then there is a small helper function that basically is saying like, grab that object, serialize it, and send it to Typest for reuse. So you can already do that. It's a little bit advanced. It's the same way as with observable in Quarto, where you can just take an object in R and put it in observable. So you can do the same thing. You can always like do like this or do this more manually, like having your code write some CSV JSON file, and then having a code in Typest read that.
Mhm.
So there are various ways, but I think the simplest workflow is to use Quarto to just handle this. Or you will have to have an R script and a
Okay, yeah.
type document separately.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to check this out. I think my other question about, which geoms you was about which geoms you chose to implement and which, I mean, particularly the stat layer, right? Because the sort of stats are like some sort of computation inside. Like I'm curious what you decided to
Well, I implemented the
implement and what.
simplest one. So basically everything that is density related, that was really too heavy to implement from scratch. So I did not. But you can still get like some linear regression because that's not that heavy computation. And you can
Mhm,
get the smooth
mhm,
band. So that's basically like some trivial stats, but you don't get like a density or like a proper like violin plot and everything like that and
mhm,
maps. So that's the
mhm,
main thing that
mhm,
are actually missing. The other stats are basically there. I have some kind of roadmap. I can share the link later on the on the dev version of the documentation website, where basically you can
mhm,
see what from ggplot is there, what is not, what has changed, what was out of scope, and everything.
mhm.
Cool. Yeah, great questions.
Mhm.
So I guess in the
Yeah,
interest of
cool.
time, oh yeah, thanks, Cynthia. In the interest of time, I think we should probably turn it over to Teun. I think maybe like he's facing the ggSQL project faces some of the same concerns. So this is really interesting, and I anticipate maybe staying a little bit past the hour because we are taking on a lot. I don't know if the speakers can. So anyway, Chun has been consulting at Posit for a couple of years now and has worked pretty intensely on the ggplot2 maintenance and new releases, the 3.5 and 4.0 releases. And now is dedicating a lot of time to the ggSQL project. So, Chun, I think I saw you hop on. How are you doing?
Yeah, sorry, I missed the email with the link, so I was late.
Yeah,
I was
no
begging
problem.
Gina, please send me the link. And I got it eventually. See, I'm having a very uncomfortable Zoom setup at the moment. Let's see.
Yeah, well, if folks want
You're
to
seeing
drop,
something?
oops, yes.
Good.
I also wanted to just invite folks to say where they're joining from, if it's their first time, or if they could estimate how many times they've come. Just have another way to interact. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we see your slides.
Good. Yeah, so I'm very lazily recycling slides I made for last week, and the audience is exactly the opposite. Last week I was at DuckCon, which is purely a database people with no knowledge of the grammar of graphics, whereas here I expect everyone knows the grammar of graphics, but might not be so familiar with databases. So we'll see how well the slides fit. But yeah, we've been making a new tool, ggSQL. It is basically the grammar of graphics for SQL. And for those of you unfamiliar with SQL, it stands for Structured Query Language. And you can kind of see it as dplyr for databases. Usually people tell it the other way around. The dplyr is the SQL for R, but it works the other way around as well. But SQL is used for interacting with big databases, usually those that are bigger than fit in memory. And we are trying to build a grammar of graphics inside the SQL. So this is what typical, well, not typical, but what a simple SQL query looks like. You have, I want this data set. This just means I want the table. And this is a filter statement, essentially. And you get these penguins out. I assume everyone here is familiar with the penguins, but the thing that was not obvious for the database people is that you cannot easily spot the trends here and that you should visualize it. And one of the ways you can do this is with the community extension for DuckDB, but that's not the point here. The point is that you can add, we've added new words for SQL basically that allow you to speak a plot into existence. It is not a ggplot2 port to SQL. We are trying to overcome some of the problems we've encountered in maintaining ggplot2. But it's very similar in structure. Like instead of ggplot, you have the keyword visualize. Then you have a mapping, like you want this bill length as X, the bill depth is Y. And instead of gems and stats, you have draw clauses. Because one of the mistakes we think that ggplot2 made was trying to distinguish gems and stats, whereas they are all layers. So we are kind of rectifying this mistake here. And as usual, you can draw multiple layers and you can add aesthetics and kind of works very ggplot-like. There are also interactive examples. So this is the ggsql.org website. You can just play around with these text boxes. You can delete. So I've now removed the line. I can remove the bin scale to a normal continuous scale. You can try out these examples as you see fit. Then there was a bit of bragging about ggplot2, which I don't think I need to do here. Basically, it's like the thing I want to convey is that it's like the next step after ggplot2 for a different language. So new ideas can come to fruition. I don't need to explain the grammar of graphics to this audience, but it's just to note. I should put the Typst in here as well. Now, but unfortunately, I didn't at the time I was making the slides. But yeah, the point is that Leland Wilkinson made this theory with his different software implementations. We have this in R, we have this in Python, we have this in Julia, we have Verilite and Tableau. And then notably, the missing thing was SQL. SQL didn't have a grammar of graphics layer to it. So we are trying to provide that. And the problem that we kind of see it is that people that work with SQL are primarily data analysts and not so much data scientists. So they're more focused on data warehousing and less focused on making statistical models. And we imagine that these data analysts, if they want to visualize something, they have an analytics pipeline that kind of looks like this. So you have your data. Can you see my mouse or no? Oh, yeah. Okay. So you have your data living here in a database somewhere, and you have to send it either to R or Python. You use like dplyr and ggplot2 to do the data wrangling and visualization. And the problem is that you have to switch ecosystems. So you have your data, which nicely lives in a database, and you have to open R or Python, and this is just like a mental switch. Okay, I have now a different programming language, I have different syntax rules, I have different tools to my disposal, and that is generally a little bit of a pain. So where we position ggSQL is right here. You can just stay in the comfort of, well, it depends. If you're coming from R, it's not really a comfort. But if you're coming from SQL, it ought to be some comfort to stay in that ecosystem. And yeah, the general grammar of graphics benefits apply. So there are already some SQL plotting libraries. Here, Cynthia's critique applies. Like if you make a functional approach, the function either does too little or too much, and there's just it's if it's too little, it can do enough. If it's too large, it becomes some kind of monolith you don't want to deal with. So that applies here as well. And the other thing that SQL people might be using is this Microsoft Power BI desktop, which is a point and click adventure. And we are not convinced that point and click is the way to do a reproducible visualization. We believe that code is the way, so we are poo-pooing this as well. And just to briefly compare why we think SQL and the grammar of graphics kind of fit together, it's because both of them are declarative. The grammar of graphics, you essentially speak information in codex, like show this revenue as bar by month. Whereas SQL also has similar syntax. As like you say, give revenue good by month. You can compose a plot using layers, scales, facets, etc. Whereas SQL, you compose by using select, group by, where, or like basically the dplyr verbs. SQL, they come in different databases, but they all use very similar grammar. Something similar, but not exactly the same, is true for the grammar of graphics in the sense that there are different implementations, but they don't necessarily share the grammar. But you can see definitely the mark of the ggplot2 school of thought in many, like plot9 is very ggplot2 inspired and such. But these are commonalities that we think make it work together pretty well. So I should probably explain a little bit how it works. So here comes the query from the user, which is the select blah 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 from this data set, followed by a visualized statement. We use a tree sitter to parse the grammar. We split the bits, so the everything before visualize, we essentially send to the database for the database to handle. we take control over the visualize and everything that comes after. We build our own representation of it. We percolate it during the plot building. And the nice thing about this is if you want a histogram, you have a very large data set with like millions of rows, you can let the database do the aggregation for the histogram. And so it doesn't need to happen in ggSQL. It happens on the back end, which is nice. So I suspect everybody knows about the Minard data set. If you don't, you really should, because it's a fantastic visualization. But to briefly introduce this, this graphic is essentially a depiction of Napoleon Bonaparte's march from Lithuania into Moscow in 1812. And you see a line departing here, going to Moscow, while the line gets thinner. The thickness of the lines means the number of troops that Napoleon has at that point, so it gets thinner and thinner, so Napoleon is losing troops and troops. And the black line is essentially the retreat. So Napoleon goes to Moscow and has to retreat. And if you compare how thick this line of departure is versus the line when he arrives back at that point, you can see that although Napoleon did reach Moscow, he did not, many of his other men and maybe some women did not make it back. That's basically what this plot shows. And in ggSQL, we have, I think it's Michael here. Anyway, we stole Michael's data that he has collected in his historical data sets, which is basically this data. You have some coordinates. You have the number of soldiers that Napoleon has, whether they're advancing or retreating, and some army groups. And it works very similar to ggplot2. You usually start with one layer. The simplest layer is drawing a path. And just like you're using groups in ggplot2, you can set a partition by clause in ggSQL that separates the advancing versus retreating versus different army groups. You can, of course, map things, so like the advance and the retreat, but also the number of survivors. And we also have scales. So the scale, we don't have scale X continuous such. We have scale static to the output range. And then there are clauses which we're not using now, but next one. Yeah, from this range to that range. So I'm pretty proud of how we managed to get the scale syntax to work nicely. Which is an improvement over all the scale color Veridis, the scale color Brewer, scale color this, scale color that. I think this works nice. You can add different layers with different data, as you can in ggplot2. You can do different chord systems. So this project to Mercator would be similar-ish to chord SF with a particular projection. We added this recently. I think it was last week, Monday. We can swap. Sorry. You can also add spatial layers, which we added at the same time. So here we are grabbing some natural Earth data, filtering for Europe, because we don't. If we are looking at Napoleon's march, we don't really need to know what's happening in Australia. I'm sorry, Mitchell, but for Napoleon's march, unfortunately, Australia is not the most relevant country. So you can try out different projections, like this Albers projection, this orthographic projection. They kind of work. And you can zoom in as well. And as a final touch, you can do the labels. So that is a full example of how you can build a plot in ggSQL. We plan to. The difference between this and R and Python is that we don't have a runtime, so we are not depending on R and having the correct versions of Rlang installed and all this. It's an executable file, which also allows us to constrain the execution of malicious code. You can delete your own database, but you can do that with SQL as well. So that's not our fault. We have a bunch of integrations, like the WDB extension. We have a command line interface. There's a Jupyter kernel, so you can use it in Porto as well. Yeah, and we hope that it kind of works well with assistance. We have made a ggSQL skill for those interested. You can get it in various places. So, was that 15 minutes? Yes, that was 15 minutes. So in summary, we made this new SQL-based tool for data visualization based on graphics, and most of it runs in DuckDB unless specified otherwise. And thank Posit for paying me money, and Thomas, George, and Hadley were doing this with me.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, so I think we could take some ggSQL focused questions and then open up for questions that kind of compare the two and directed questions as well. So I guess I have a quick question, Teun, and then we'll take Matt's question about the draw decision, which is like
Yes.
kind of correcting the layer mistake. And I think I've seen it in the documentation too that like the stat is hardwired to the layer or something like that.
Yep.
I was just wondering, yeah, like what is there flexibility for like that mix
Nope.
and match? Nope. Okay. And that is
There's
that like,
let's say every vanilla layer that doesn't come with a stat computation on its own, it has like a summary computation that you can do.
yeah, so
Compute
there's the
averages on the fly,
aggregation.
but yeah, there's some aggregation ability, but it's not really. You cannot mix and match stats.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Well, the aggregations seem really powerful, but I feel like, yeah, I feel like I might miss the mix and match with the stats. Interesting.
No,
Okay.
it makes no sense to draw a density layer and compute a histogram.
Well, yeah,
But
Some you cannot mix, right. The mix and match
those just
is really the trick,
illogical combinations that people
Mhm.
shouldn't be
Yeah,
doing unless
yeah,
they know what they're doing,
yeah,
which I
right.
suspect some R people might, but
Yeah. I think it's more for extenders, like the
people
usefulness of the stat. But anyway, okay, interesting. Okay. And so Matt and Novika then.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I mean, I kind of like that you got rid of the whole stat thing. I mean, I think it's even interesting in ggplot. Like, it feels sometimes kind of weird to have that when you also have the ability to like drop a function into data, right? Or even just do your own data transformation before. Like, it seems like if you're going to embed in a database language that already has all this data transformation stuff, why redundantly create that as another layer in the grammar for the graphics? I actually really like that decision. I have a totally different question, which is uh, if you're sitting in a relational database, do you have any functionality for visualizing like multi-table data sets or things with like key relationships between uh, data tables, things like that? There's a really interesting paper by Eugene Wu, who's like a database guy, if you haven't seen it, who was kind of reflecting on how would you do grammar of graphics type stuff in a database. Um, and one of the things he talks about a lot is, the types of visualizations you might want to make, like network diagrams. that actually involve relationships between tables may change the way you would design a grammar in that setting. So I was curious if you've thought about that.
Not directly. I suspect at some point there will be a gggraph equivalent to do like layout of network diagram kind of stuff. For now, if you want to use multiple tables, you can by setting different data for different layers. Also, of course, you can do whatever joins in SQL that you would be able to do in dplyr. So I don't see a big limitation there at the moment. I mean, SQL is
I
very
think
powerful.
I think the big arguments there are usually around correctness issues, right? So in ggplot or in anything else, yeah, you can take single tables or you can select single tables, put them into different layers, or do the joins ahead of time. But one of the things, I've even seen I did a study a couple of years ago where I was looking at ggplot experts and some of the mistakes they sometimes make. And one of the mistakes that's very common is if you do a certain set of data transformations up here before you make the chart, and then you make the chart, but relationships you create in the chart don't actually respect the data transformations you did, right? Like maybe you do some grouping and aggregation in your data transformation prior to constructing the chart, or you do a join in a certain way, and then you don't condition on the right things in the way that you set up the visuals in the chart, you can actually show something that is wrong. Um, and one of the nice things about in being in a relational database is you actually know what those relationships are because they're constraints across the data tables. Like this
Right,
column is a
they
key to this,
share
right?
predefined keys and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so if you know that structure, you can actually enforce certain correctness constraints on the final visualization. Or if you know what data transformations have been done, you can avoid certain errors in the output visualization, just sort of by default.
Yeah, we have not looked into this at all. No, it's an interesting idea, but I wrote my first SQL query 6-7 months ago, so and I don't really know databases that well. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be fun to look into because I feel like it's a cool opportunity for a thing that ggplot can't do by its own nature, but what you can do in this other setting, right?
Can you tell me the name again of the
Yeah,
software?
I can drop the paper in the chat here.
Oh, lovely. Yes, yes, please. Thanks. I think Novika, you had a hands up.
Yes, thanks. So I know there is another package by POSIT that allows you to execute models on database. It's Orbital, right?
Yes.
So does gsql anyhow relates to this in the sense that, well, you can then visualize the results of that modeling in the same sort of pipeline
The
somehow?
honest answer is I have no idea.
Okay.
I know that this package is out there. I don't exactly know the implementation details of it. So the answer is I do not know.
Yes, I think Chen, the ggSQL team has leaned into using AI more than was used on putting together ggplot2, obviously. I guess, did you have any reflections on that? I don't know if you were here when Mickaël was talking about his use of AI agents, but I was just
Yeah,
curious.
I have some reflections on them. First and foremost, I hate them to bits. I don't like them. But sometimes you kind of have to use them. Like I didn't know any. Like this project is written in Rust. I didn't know any Rust beforehand. And kind of use LLMs to teach me Rust as we go along. But I'm not happy with the ways LLMs are currently doing. It gives me a lot of headaches. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. People might find it very useful.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
so what
they
is
also do useful stuff for me sometimes, but I have
yeah.
to fight them to get anything useful.
So yeah, I guess like so Mickaël was saying, and then maybe you can jump into and correct me that like there was like most of the planning and like kind of there was a lot of templating, I guess, that happened
Right.
with the Gribouille project, and then like you turn the project over once you have like a very durable template over to use AI and after a lot of templating and planning out. And Mickaël, if you want to just jump in and add some nuance there.
Yeah, I think it's like about templates, it's mostly about that the constraint, because as you said, like we fight a lot against them, especially when you start a new project. So it's like really a nightmare to have to start with something you want like well structured. But it's quite efficient at like investigating issue once you have like a visual regression test and basically all the testing infrastructure. I think that's where you can really leverage AI stuff. It's when you have the constraints, ensuring like if something goes wrong, you can catch it.
Yeah, it's also way better at catching these little those thingies like the borrow checker and stuff like it. I'm not saying I code better than the AI. It's just that I don't think they're useless. They are useful, but it doesn't. I mean, many other things that are useful, but I don't like.
Do you feel like the project was enabled like
Oh yeah, for sure. I
by
mean,
like
the first draft was essentially George vibe coding how to link up the visualization bit with the SQL bit.
yeah.
We spent a lot of time on like making fishes out of the soup. Is that the correct?
I don't know that phrase. Do we have that phrase in
I
English?
mean, the idea is once you make fish soup, you cannot get the fish back, and we've spent a lot of time trying to get the fish out of the LLM soup.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
I may have to chew on it for a while. Yeah, is George like your sequel? Well,
Well, he's the
he's not really a ggplot2 guy. I'm just
no George
curious
is
about
the WebAssembly. Well, I
yeah.
don't want to characterize him as too one-dimensional, but he's basically the WebAssembly guy. He did
Yeah.
also the R WebAssembly stuff. So
Okay.
he's very great at that stuff. I think probably out of the four of us, George is also the most database minded.
Okay.
Yeah, and Thomas and I are visualization people,
Yeah.
and Hadley just has very strong opinions that.
Yeah. And then Joyce has her hand up. Sorry for the wait.
No worries. No worries. I have a question like a little more philosophical, and I think it would apply to both speakers. Like, at what point is a port no longer a ggplot2 port, but a like grammar of graphics implementation? You know, as things are diverging a bit from ggplot2. That's like part of my question. The other is, you know, from a user point of view, I can see people getting a little confused, like what's a wrapper, what's a port, what's like, do they think that they're actually using ggplot2? You know, like, is there sort of a way to make it clearer to people what's going on? I'm not always sure if I'm actually using some language or a complete translation of it, if that makes sense.
I don't know if there is a clear boundary. It's fuzzy.
Yeah. And Hassan is on the call too, so I don't know if he's active, but certainly it seems like plot9 is a port, right? It like really tries to mimic the vocabulary. Sorry for jumping in, but just wanted to.
Yeah, that's really a tricky question, like because like we all made decision with plot9, ggSQL, or even with Gribouille, that is basically a constraint from the language we are using the grammar of graphics. So ggplot was the first, then yes, there is a first step that is a port where we try to mimic, but at every decision after that, I believe that they are basically going to be their own tool, like using the grammar of graphics, but not really like once you have made a choice for a design or something, it's basically no longer like a port of ggplot2. It's a port of the grammar of graphics. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, but there's also like clear distinctions between stuff like ggplot2 and Vega Lite, whereas Vega Lite is an absolute hellhole to work with. ggplot2 and more faithful ports are very lovely to work.
Hassan, did you want to weigh in at all about how you see your own?
Yeah, I think I think the closer you do the grammar of graphics to the layered grammar, and um it counts more as a port, and it definitely then obviously if you're changing languages, then the constraints sometimes force you into different choices, and then you diverge away from being a straight port. So I look at it as a gradient of like between a port, or like a straight port, and then just like implementing a grammar of like a grammar of gradient, a grammar of graphics, and some decisions are like forced upon you, like just based on like the environment, and also some taste things whereby you're like, oh, you have like you have a strong opinion about um small and inconsequential thing to you, but to others it's big.
Maybe the distinction is way easier. Like every time you have a plot with a gray background, that's
Yeah.
I guess I just maybe had one clarification question to Mickaël in Gribouille. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but so I may have been distracted just when you were talking about it. Is there a sequence that you need to write your code in as far as like the different like orthogonal elements that the grammar of graphics
Yeah, no,
specifies?
so that's not how like typos work. So you can basically summarize the whole Gribouille thing of being like a massive dictionary of dictionaries of dictionaries and so on that define what is a geom point, what is a scale, what is everything. It's including the data, it's basically a dictionary as well. And this huge dictionary is basically used by one single function that is actually doing the work, that is reading that specification and using sets to draw the different polygons and so on. So that's why like there is no like order. And why currently I don't like my current API for like the patchwork like thing, because you need to actually stop the evaluation of the dictionary to still keep the spec in order to actually combine two plots. So that's why I have a defer helper that basically say, don't evaluate this, keep the specification as a dictionary for something else to reuse. So you can even like do the defer plot and see what actually your plot is, like a just huge dictionary. So I might think of like maybe switching to the dictionaries will not be evaluated at all, And the only way to do that would be to call like some kind of print or draw. So that would make the composition maybe easier, and you will print only if you are explicit about it. I'm not settled yet on that idea, but yeah, Gribouille is just a big dictionary with a function to draw out of it.
Mhm.
And if I can, like I say, like there is no plus operator, but actually since everything is a dictionary, you can just combine dictionary. So you can just use the plus as a way to combine dictionary, and you can get like things really fast, like to go ugly, because even from a plot, you can just add anything from a dictionary. It will combine into it. So you can add any parameters that are not set. Like, yeah, you can do basically everything possible. And I have no idea how it's going to be. And since there is no validation of dictionaries, basically, yeah, you are free to extend in however way you want, and it might work or not. So that's the tricky part of Typest is I have some helpers to construct the dictionary that can validate and say like, yeah, you are not providing the right input, but I can't forbid someone to actually just combine manually the dictionary and send it to render.
Okay.
So that's the trick about plus. It works, but yeah, don't use it.
Okay. Am I hearing that like the framework is extender friendly? Like, I mean, if you know what you're doing, and then I have that question for the ggSQL project as well.
Well, for Typest, so it is because it's just dictionary. So if you have a clear idea about like how the various dictionaries are structured, you can basically do whatever you want. And you can just also put every more advanced logic into a WASM plugin. So it's quite easy to plug in one into a Typest package. So yeah, it would be like quite easy if you know what you are doing in Typest and in WASM to extend it.
Okay. I thought maybe we should take a quick poll about who among us has used Typest. Um, yes, and I have. You can say so in the chat, or if you don't want to come off mic. I have used it in a very limited way. Cynthia has. Feels like Quarto people love it. Yeah, cool. Mitch has. Satoshi has. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing with types yet, but I have given it a whirl. So, and then okay, I'll let Teun answer, and then maybe you could give us a quick pitch for types, because it's like, I feel like I haven't been given a types pitch. I just know it's wonderful. But let's go to Teun first about
Oh, the answer
extensibility.
is no, it's not extensible.
It seemed like that was going to be the answer. Interesting.
Is there any plan like to allow to extend it, or
Not at the moment.
just
There's I don't know how that would work in Rust.
issues and pull requests, right?
Yeah, if you want a special layer, then that's the way to go. It's like basically ggplot2 before version 2.0.0, where it also didn't have extensions. Yeah, I also don't know how that would work with distribution. Like, because it's distributed as an executable. It doesn't live in an ecosystem of other packages necessarily. I don't know. The answer is no. But to get to a yes, there is a lot of figuring of stuff out, and getting to the yes is not the immediate path towards the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I saw Joyce's asked this question about who's using Typst. Yeah. Did you have another question, Joyce?
No, I thought you were just reading my question.
Which is
Think alike.
encouraging us at the same time. Well, so then, Mickaël, do you want to do you have a quick elevator pitch for Typst?
I think Typest is so I first started using it through Quarto because you get like pretty decent PDF, and then I started to actually wanted to have branded document like with the logo, with some like rectangles in the margin or some effect in the background and stuff like that. So I made like, for instance, my carousel for LinkedIn are all made with Typest, so without Quarto. And it appears like it's quite easy when you know like the main function. Like you have one kind of magical function that is called place, and basically you can put whatever you want in whatever place of your document. So that means you can build anything. So once you know that and you know the basic markup, which is really similar to Markdown, you can have some prose anywhere in your page, in the margin or whatever. So that's really easy to get something like pretty fast. Contrary to LaTeX, where if every time you add a package, basically you have to deal with conflicts, and you know that a long table is not working great in some circumstances, like if you want to cross-ref them and so on. So like there is a better design in Typest, and it's way faster than LaTeX. Like if you want to generate anything, it's basically a matter of few seconds. So that's really like a nice way to get PDF and pretty advanced PDF out of the box. So either through Quarto or just a small template from the community in Typest, you can easily port to Quarto or just go through Typest itself directly.
Would it be unfair to describe it as a user-friendly LaTeX with 30 years of technological process behind it?
Yeah, kind of. But yeah, like you can even do like some. So I think I'm going to write a blog post about this course. Like here we have Gribouille, there are a lot of other tools, but there is some computing ability into Typest. Like you can just do loops, you can do filters, an array. You can do the equivalent of like a dplyr mutate and stuff like that. So you can really like do some processing to your data, talk about your data, just programmatically create table in Typest. And it's really like close to any programming language. It's like, you use it as you will write any prose nearly. The main tricky part is that basically everything is a dictionary, and dictionaries are not the best like a structure to handle complex objects. So that's the main issue. Like if you really want to do some advanced stuff, it starts to get a little bit ugly.
All right. We maybe could take one more question in this like formal part, and then I will turn off the recording and we can just chat any club issues, any new business that anybody needs to take care of. We can talk about it. We have JSM coming up, so I don't know. Yeah. So any final question from folks that are still here? I think some people are dropping off. Appreciate folks staying on for a little bit of extra time. Okay, but seeing none, we can wrap up. This was really cool. It was a great tour of both projects, and I really enjoyed hearing reflections about putting them together. They seem both really promising. I love ggplot2. I think like when I heard about plot 9 at first, I felt like I felt a little bit threatened by it, to be honest. But you know, it's cool that like people love the framework and want it in their own language and in their own space. And so I think this work is great, and as well as plot 9. Okay. Yeah. See, stop recording.